What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today we're going to get into my top 5 must-add running backs for Week 9 of the fantasy football season. Now, every single one of these players will be under 50% owned on ESPN, and if you want my in-depth waiver wire article where I go down and break down, like the top 10 players at every position that are on waivers, and I go over how much fab I would spend on each and every single one of them, you can get that down below in the description or in the comments, patreon.com/Ron Stewart, all of that good stuff and more for just $5. Now, let's not waste any time. Let's get straight into it. Make sure you subscribe, leave a like. Let's go.
Thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm critical.
All right, so our first running back on this list is going to be 2 running backs. I'm just going to lump these 2 guys in together because they're pretty much in the same situation. We have Adrian Peterson and Jeremy Mcnichols. Now, obviously, as you guys know, Derrick Henry out 6 to 10 weeks with a foot injury. It seems like week 14 is his absolute best case scenario for coming back. We are pretty much preparing here for life without Derrick Henry for at least the regular season of the fantasy football season, and so are the Titans. They went out there, they picked up Adrian Peterson, but I also want to say that I think that there's a very strong chance that they acquire another running back via trade. So that'll be tomorrow, right? So you guys will see this today, which is Tuesday. Trade deadline is today when you guys see this. I want to say 4 p.m. So I would wait to put in your waiver claims because the biggest ad of the week is going to be the Titans running back. And I think that they could go out and trade for, Phillip Lindsay, Melvin Gordon, Ronald Jones, Marlon Mack are all good names. Now, I know Marlon Mack is in the same division, but I'm just spitballing here. I don't see why, Marlon Mack would, swing the power of the division. Now, again, I would hold off on making these bids until we have all of that information at hand. But if you put a gun to my head and you ask me Mcnichols or Adrian Peterson, who are you going to bid more on? I lean Jeremy Mcnichols. I actually liked Jeremy Mcnichols coming out of school. I think he's more than just a passing down back. Came out of Boise State. He's 5'9", 214 pounds. He has 82nd percentile BMI. He is kind of in the DeAndre Swift size range, right? So DeAndre Swift is 5'8", like 208, I believe, or like 210. So right in that area, 82nd percentile BMI, that is, workhorse type size. Now, obviously he's 5'9", he's not massive, but, we've seen workhorses like, Doug Martin. He's kind of in a similar role where he's, pumped up that size. He runs a 4.49 in the 81st percentile of 40-yard dashes. He has an all-purpose skill set in this backfield. Now, he only has 7 carries on the season, but I think that role could easily expand, and we could see Adrian Peterson kind of fill in with as like a short yardage grinder type guy. Now, obviously, we are completely speculating. We have no idea how this offense is going to shake out. I imagine that from just a macro perspective, this offense relies less on the run than they did with Derrick Henry. They'll start passing more often, but there still will be a lot of running back opportunities to go around. And like I said, I think that AP will be the guy that, rotates in, does his thing. I think that this could be a poor man's, DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams type split, unless if they sign somebody. I expect them to do that, but it could be a Swift, Jamal Williams type split. And imagine if they were actually a good football team winning games, right? So Jamal Williams would come in, grind out a lot more clock when they're not in those negative game scripts. But I think that it could be something like that, or like Aaron Jones and, AJ Dillon. Now, obviously, we're talking about much less talents here with Mcnichols and Adrian Peterson, but if they sit on their hands, they don't do anything. That's how I see it shaking out. So I do lean Mcnichols. I don't think it's wild to say that Mcnichols has, Khalil Herbert, Elijah Mitchell type upside in this offense, where I think that Adrian Peterson's ceiling outcomes probably look something like, Devontae Freeman, Latavius Murray in Baltimore this season. Moving on from that, we're going to talk about another tandem of running backs, the Philadelphia Eagles running backs. We have Boston Scott and Jordan Howard. Boston Scott had 12 carries, 60 yards, 2 touchdowns, and Jordan Howard had 12 carries, 57 yards, 2 touchdowns. Pretty much identical stat lines, but it's really important to zoom in here and see, who was the main guy before this game got out of hand. I believe they won by 30 plus points, and it was Boston Scott who was the number one guy, as a between the tackles guy, as like a workhorse in this offense. Still very weird. I have no idea why they're doing this. Boston Scott, 5'6", like 200 pounds soaking wet. Kenneth Gainwell, much more suited to be, an all-purpose guy. He looked really good in Memphis. I don't know why they're limiting him to this strictly third down pass catching role, but that is where he is at. I don't know why Kenneth Gainwell didn't absorb any of Miles Sanders' role, but it seems like Boston Scott is that guy. He played in 15 of the first 15 plays for the Eagles, operating pretty much as the number one running back. And then as the game got out of hand, we saw the other running backs mix in. We saw Gainwell close out in garbage time. We saw Jordan Howard play somewhere in between. And Scott is definitely worth an ad. He is the guy that I think is the number one guy in this backfield moving forward. Now, obviously, Kenneth Gainwell will get the passing down work. They're going to be in game scripts where it won't be as run-friendly as it was today. So, Scott isn't someone I'm drooling over, but he's an interesting ad. I'll also say Jordan Howard is like somewhat an interesting ad, is like a goal line back, grinder back. Might as well take a shot at somebody, at a warm body in this offense. Much less excited about him. He'll probably be like, my 8th, 9th, 10th running back, but I added him just because of the Eagles running back committee. The asterisk with this is that Miles Sanders is due back soon, so I think that he is going to be back, if not this week, then next week. So Boston Scott is at best, a flex play for 1 to 2 weeks, so don't go crazy on him. He is, just an ad that I would, just snag off waivers if I have a spot. Our third running back on this list is Carlos Hyde. He is not sexy at all, but James Robinson kind of went under the radar because of the Derrick Henry news, but James Robinson has a bruised heel. He left the game after maybe 10, 15 snaps, and it looks like Carlos Hyde could be a spot start, right? So if James Robinson misses the week, Carlos Hyde is that guy, sadly. You got to kind of just plug your nose, play him, but he saw 8 targets, which is actually a lot for a running back. Then he saw 9 carries. He would be that main guy in this backfield. I know that they just sent out a claim for either like Devin Azigbo or Daria Gumbawale, one of those kinds of guys. I'm going to operate under the assumption that if James Robinson misses time, that Urban Meyer loves Carlos Hyde so much that he would be the number one back for a week. He'd probably be like a fringe RB2 if James Robinson misses time. The next running back on this list is going to be Alex Collins for the Seahawks. He is just under 50% owned. He's seen 10 or more carries in every game that he has played with Chris Carson out. We still don't know the timetable on Chris Carson. Chris Carson could literally miss the end of the season. He has something going on with his neck. To be honest with you, if I had something going on with my neck and I'm out there taking carries, putting my head down on the goal line, I would say I'm good. I'll see you guys in 2022, but I am not built like an NFL running back. Now, we don't know how long Chris Carson will be out, so I'm operating under the assumption that Alex Collins will be that guy moving forward. Not that he has been, playing insanely, but with Russell Wilson, he looked great. In the games without Russell Wilson, he hasn't passed 10 points, but he's still getting that volume. Rashad Penny hasn't looked great. I want to say I saw a stat floating around that he had like a 1.9 yards per carry. They have a bye week this week. Russell Wilson, he put like a picture on Twitter of like him getting the pin out of his finger. Russell Wilson isn't supposed to come back until like week 12 to 13 is what the Twitter doctors are saying. But this is Russell Wilson. He is like the epitome of like competition, and it's just a finger injury. So it wouldn't shock me if he came out and he played in week 10. I know that that's wild. I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving medical advice, but it wouldn't shock me if Russell Wilson came out here, decided that it was his time to play in week 10. Now, with that, if Russell Wilson juices up the entire offense, Chris Carson isn't there. Alex Collins is all of a sudden a top 24 running back in the fantasy landscape of just an absolute dumpster fire of running backs this season. Our 5th running back on the list is going to be Ty Johnson. And I know that Michael Carter has gotten a lot of the, the hype. I got the green lights in the background because the Jets are looking amazing. I know that we're not like making you run at anything, but the Jets are interesting for the first time in a long time. And Mike White is not only making Michael Carter a sick running back, but he's also making both running backs relevant. Ty Johnson has quietly been very good these last 3 weeks that he's played. He has as many rush attempts inside of the 5 as Michael Carter this season, so he's still seeing a lot of goal line rushes. He has 13 targets in his last 2 games. It's like 6.5 per game. That's extremely good. He is the RB10 in fantasy points per game the last 2 weeks. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that RB10, he's not an RB1 moving forward, but he's getting interesting usage with Mike White. Mike White is a little bit better. This offense is a little bit more juiced up now that we have LaFleur calling plays, from the booth. Mike White is looking, like an NFL quarterback. I could see Zach Wilson coming back and the offense could still be just fine. But with Tevin Coleman gone, which is like the big, piece in Ty Johnson looking very good, it's now a 2-man backfield, and both of them can be successful in this like Shanahan type offense where they're running the ball a lot. The run blockers up front have been great. Elijah Vera Tucker, the rookie, has a really, really solid run blocking grade. I want to say like 85 for a rookie left guard is insane. Ty Johnson's also this really explosive running back that I love. I think that if, you take him, he is like a decent flex play at times, but he also has the ability where if Michael Carter was to go down, he would be an RB2 instantly. Then I want to brush over some of my honorable mentions in this video. First up, we have Sony Michel. Sony Michel, I want to say, handled like 9 carries when it got into garbage time last week. I don't know why he's available in so many places because we know Sony Michel is still capable. He's still efficient. He looks good. Darrell Henderson for sure is the bell cow, but we just saw with Derrick Henry, with, James Robinson. You want to have that surefire handcuff, and Sony Michel is maybe he is up there with like an Alexander Madison as a handcuff that would be like fringe RB1 if his starter went down. That's rare to have. A lot of these guys are more in the, Jeremy McNichols range of things. But if Darrell Henderson went down, Sony Michel is a very capable runner between the tackles. He's actually pretty good. He's been very efficient the last 2 years. So Sony Michel is a guy that I think needs to be on everybody's roster, especially with how explosive this offense is. They're scoring a lot of points. They're getting into garbage time. They're grinding out leads. So like I said, Darrell Henderson also is somebody that's been injury prone in the past. So Sony Michel is someone that I have on a lot of benches right now. I don't know why he's not 50% owned or more on ESPN, but if you see him on waivers and you have a nice little spot to give, maybe you have, you're moving somebody to IR and you have an empty bench spot, Sony Michel is a nice little fill-in. Then we have Jaret Patterson, who I said on the Top 10 Lessons show, I actually really liked Jaret Patterson coming out of school, not as an NFL prospect, but in terms of between the tackles, he is insanely good. I want to say he set the record for single game rushing yards at Buffalo. He is a very good between the tackles running back. He kind of reminds me of, a Damian Harris, a Gus Edwards, as one of these, pure rushers, like the young versions of them, like pure rushers that can do it all between the tackles, grind out yards, kind of make people miss in space. He out-carried Antonio Gibson. We don't know what's good with Antonio Gibson at this point, some kind of shin injury. There is a possibility that they, all right, let's just shut down Antonio Gibson. He doesn't look like himself. We don't need him to re-injure. I think maybe we'll run him back up in 3-4 weeks. So there is, possibility of something like that happening. So I think Jaret Patterson is an interesting add when you look at this backfield, because I don't think that J.D. McKissic, he's not the size. He doesn't really have the archetype to fill in as a bell cow where he's taking all of the goal line work. He's taking all of the carries. I think Jaret Patterson would be in a spot where he kind of assumes, the goal line work, the short down work, the between the tackle stuff, and then McKissic would still probably have his normal role. And that's somewhat valuable in fantasy. So I think that Jaret Patterson is a nice little speculative stash in case if something's wrong with Antonio Gibson, who has been dealing with injuries all season. Now that's going to do it for us today, fellas. We're going to come out with a top 5 pass catchers video. I wanted to cut these up into 2. Let me know how you guys think about it down below in the comments. We're going to cut them up into 2 so I can dive a little bit deeper on these players. And so you can just click on whatever video, like if you want to hear about the pass catchers, if you want to hear about the running backs, all that good stuff. And just so I can, give you guys a little bit more content on the week. So I can give you guys a little bit more content on the week. Now, all of these running backs are going to be featured on my Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. I will have my waiver wire article out Tuesday night, so you guys can put in your waivers with all of my fab recommendations, see my little blurbs on the players. Now, I'm going to record the second video, and then I'm going to eat dinner and watch the Monday Night Football game. So I hope you guys have a beautiful day. I love you guys, all 6,000 of you, 6.83K subscribers right now. Just dope to see. Now, I'm not going to keep on rambling. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Yup.